yeah, thanks a lot for doing that. Awesome.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Sweet, man. So yeah, we'll just jump right into it. Thanks everybody for checking this episode out. I'm chatting with my good buddy Judo Jon Williams, and why don't we just jump right into it, John? Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about where you're from and how you got into jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, sure. So I'm originally from Fredericton, New Brunswick, but I'm living in St. John, New Brunswick now. I got into jiu-jitsu because of MMA. I wanted to be an MMA fighter. But before all of that, I guess I was more into pro wrestling. During that time, it was like middle school, I joined the wrestling team, and I joined the wrestling team because I thought that like they trained me to be a pro wrestler, but completely.
Wait. Before, did you think? You mean when you started joining the wrestling, thinking like they were training to be a pro wrestler? You didn't know that it was like, oh, this is like amateur wrestling stuff.
Yeah, I was under an impression that I was going to be learn how to take falls and like people with steel chairs and shit. But it didn't work out to be that way. But I ended up like liking the sport of wrestling. I was really good in the room. So like in the room, I was probably like, even like in my high school, which I only wrestled in grade 9, but even back then I was pretty good in the room. But when it came to competition, I kind of like, I don't know, I had nerves. I still have nerves these days, and sometimes I'll underperform because of that. But I never really did good at wrestling competition. But I still stuck with it. And like around grade 9, that's when I first discovered the UFC. And it was like, I would go on Napster, like the old, like sort of MP3 downloading system or whatever.
LimeWire, all that.
Yeah. And then, you know, give my mom's computer aids and shit and all that stuff. But I would download these highlight videos, and I remember seeing Tito Ortiz, and Buddy was like putting in people in cradles and kneeing them in the head, and I was like, man, he's doing like real wrestling moves, and I was like, I'd like to do that sometime. And you know, I'm the type of guy that like, if I find something that I like, I'll obsess over it. Sorry about that. I'm just kind of getting over a cold. But I'll obsess over it. And so I would go on message boards like SureDog and kind of research MMA. And I found out that like submissions is something that you needed. During the time, there was no Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Fredericton that I knew of. So I just joined Judo from there. And then from Judo,
like 2006, 2007, maybe.
I would say even earlier than that, because I graduated back in 2005. So I think we're looking at like maybe around 2002, 2003 is when I like joined Judo.
Okay.
And I graduated high school, and I was still doing Judo, and I met Dana Dickinson, my coach, through Judo. And I noticed that he was wearing a jiu-jitsu gi and also a jiu-jitsu belt. So I asked him about it, and he said, yeah, you know, I'm coming from Toronto. I served as a police officer, but I'm back home now. And he mentioned that he was thinking about opening the school, and asked if there would be interest in the city for jiu-jitsu or like an MMA program. And I said, definitely. Because like around 2005, like that's when the Ultimate Fighter started to really pop off, right?
Yeah.
So the sports started to get more popular. Like I remember like back when I was in high school, like kids used to make fun of me because they thought that I was still into pro wrestling in high school. And I was reading these MMA magazines, and I'm like, no, like it's UFC. They're like, oh, that's fake. And I'm like, no, it ain't. Like, actual real fighting.
People didn't know back then.
Yeah. And he's like, no, they're like, no, it's fake. And then I remember grade 12, I was sitting on the bus and I can hear like people talking about Stephen Bonner and Forrest Griffin. And I'm like, screw you guys. I was there before all of you. And now it's popular.
Yeah.
And it's, so, you know, after meeting Dana and stuff, he said that he was going to open a school. And then I didn't see him for a while at judo. And then I was on Facebook and I saw that he started up his school. So I joined the school and the rest was history. Through Dana, like I was able to achieve my goal of being an MMA fighter. So I did that for a little bit. I ended up with 10 fights, not the best record, 4-6. But all my 4 wins were via first round submissions. So I always kind of was more of a submission specialist in MMA. Back then, the level was very, very low. So I was a blue belt. But like around locally, a blue belt in Jiu Jitsu would be like UFC 1.
Totally.
Like, easily take people down and submit them. Near the end of my career, the levels started to pick up. My last fight was actually Mike Mallet, who's in the UFC now. Yeah.
Did you have, I'm sure some people would be interested to hear a little bit more about your MMA career. Did you have a favorite fight or one that you just look back on, you're like, oh, that was the one?
My favorite fight, I didn't win this one, was against Brad Duguay. And we went 2.5 rounds. He ended up finishing me in the third. But it was probably my best fight in the sense that it really showed my overall improvement. Like, I really worked hard on my boxing. I showed my hands there. I worked hard on my ground and pound. So like in the first round, I elbowed the fuck out of his face and stuff like that. Looking back, I think I probably should have just tried to submit him, but I like Brad Duguay now as a person and stuff, but I really just wanted to punch him in the face back. So I really just kind of like worked on that in the round and made in the fight, and it made it a good fight, but I wasted a lot of energy, I think, just trying to punch him when I should have just like jumped on the arm or something like that and submitted him, because I think I could have submitted him in the first round. But
yeah, and I mean, it's tough. You see a lot of guys in MMA too, guys that are like jiu-jitsu specialists. I'm thinking of George Gurgel, who was like the classic, like he's so good on the ground, but like a lot of his fights were just spent kickboxing and standing up. So it's like, yeah, I feel like kind of probably like you said, you want to like kind of show your skills and like I've been working on my ground and pound, and I don't just need to win by submission, but at the same time, like you're not working kind of like your best tool in the fight. So yeah, it's very interesting. It's interesting that you would pick a fight too that you didn't necessarily win, but you just kind of showcase your skills. What about your first fight? Talk about a little bit about that. Where was it? Were you like extra nervous for that one? Talk a little bit about the first time there.
Yeah, so my first fight was against this guy named Jeff Black, who people, no offense to Jeff, but people used to call him a garage fighter. Like he just kind of self-trained himself. Yeah. At the time, his record was 2-7. So like the promoters and my coach, they all told me like, this is the fight that you're supposed to win. This is a good first fight for you. You're just going to go down there. You're going to take him down to the ground. You're going to submit him. And like I knew that was the possibility for me, but backstage, I was so nervous. Like I was pretty much ready to die that night. Like I was like anything can happen. He could hit me with a wild haymaker, hit me in the head, and then I end up dying or something. Like I was pretty much ready to die. And I went into the fight and he threw these crazy haymakers at me, and I froze up, I shelled up, and then I could hear Dana yelling at me. He's like, "Don't just stand there," and I was like, "Oh shit, okay." And then I like grabbed him, took him down, and then I ended up submitting him near the end of the round. Like there was a bit of some scrambling on the ground. I had him in an arm bar. I felt his arm popped, and like I never felt that before, so I kind of like eased up a bit, and then he slammed me. I had the arm, but at the time I didn't really know what to do with the arm, like because he had it protected and stuff. So we just kind of stayed there for a bit. The ref stood us up, and then from there I just kind of like pulled guard and triangled, choked him from there.
Sick. Yeah, and that must have been like such an adrenaline rush too, right? Once you
man, it was crazy because like we had like the team and like friends of the team that were down there to see me, and I remember just submitting the guy, and like the whole crowd's just cheering for me, and like never experienced that in my life. So I'm like looking at people, and like I probably have like this face of shock on me, like I don't know how to react to it. And I look over at the corner, and my best friend from high school, he's laughing hysterically at me. I probably have this face that's like dumbfounded. And then Dana just came in, lifted me up, and it was just like, it was such a high. Like, and I remember just sitting near my friends and stuff after the fight, and I was like, oh shit, I'm getting paid for this. $600 from it. But I was like, man, this is crazy. I actually got paid for competing. Like,
yeah,
that's dope.
Yeah, it's amazing, man. And I mean, it's interesting because I mean, we started roughly probably around the same time, and we've really seen the scene in the Maritimes, like it's grown like crazy exponentially. Like now, I mean, when we started, there was like you said, there wasn't many gyms in the area. Things were just kind of starting out. And now, I mean, there's multiple gyms in like every province and even like every like major city. So, I mean, what would you say about the state of jiu-jitsu specifically in the Maritimes, like when we started to like now?
Oh yeah. Like when we started, like in New Brunswick, I think the highest belt was Sam Johnson. And at the time when I started, he was a purple belt, right? And then my first seminar was with Jake McKenzie, and Jake was a purple belt back then, and he just blew my mind. So like, I was thinking back then, I was like, purple belts are like fucking gods. They're the best thing out there, right? And then I got my purple belt, and I was like, man, I ain't shit.
You're like, no, it's not magic.
But now we have like a shit ton of black belts like throughout the Maritimes. In New Brunswick, we're in the double digits now. So like it's grown quite a bit, and I would say it's grown pretty fast. And I would say personally, and I'm not saying I'm one of them, but there's definitely people in our scene that could like go to ADCC and do well, you know, that could go to a trials and possibly win their division. There's a lot of good guys up and coming that could pull that off. Whereas back then, like probably not, you know, but you know, our scene's developing really well. And as someone that loves jiu-jitsu, like it makes me really happy to see that and see it grow. And, you know, I look at my students and stuff, and like, I'm thinking like, they're all white belts, but they're so lucky, you know, because when I started out, it was just Dana was a blue belt. And like Dana taught me, but a lot of our techniques came from like YouTube. You know, we would go on YouTube and study jiu-jitsu, and then come to the gym and be like, hey, I just saw this move on YouTube. What do you think of it? And it's like, oh yeah, that's pretty good. Dana would do the same thing, and that's how we developed it. But now, like, we have the knowledge and we can pass it on to our white belts and stuff like that. And so they're going to be a lot better than what I was when I first started, you know?
And a lot faster.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like there's us, the black belts that they have now, a lot of Scotia. Not every single club would have black belts teaching every class, but even just the level of like blues, purples, browns. I always think about that when I'm teaching. I'm like, man, these guys, like, they're so much better than I was, like as a white belt or as a blue belt. Like I had no ability to like wrestle when I was a white belt or blue belt, even as a purple or a brown belt. Now it's just something like I thought was important as a black belt. So I started adding classes in and trying to kind of make myself good at it. But I feel like, now it's like we know what's important. We know what to show them. And if we don't know, it's easy enough to go buy a Gordon Ryan DVD or Gary Tonin or John Danaher, and you can almost be better than your coach in a very specific area. Yep.
And BJJ Fanatics is a game changer, I feel, for instructors, but also guys that are coming up. Because you literally have like high level instruction at your fingertips. Whereas before, like, I had YouTube, but you kind of had to filter a little bit, because you had guys that, you know, maybe they were like more of a traditional Japanese jiu-jitsu.
You had to fight through a lot of crap to find anything good back then. And like jiu-jitsu, YouTube jiu-jitsu was kind of frowned upon, honestly, when we were white and blue belts. People would be like black belts, like they're not looking at stuff on YouTube, like they're not on YouTube. And honestly, like Danaher wasn't making YouTube videos, like Gordon wasn't. It wasn't until Fanatics came around that this became like an accepted, like really like common thing. But I remember thinking about like when a lot of these videos were becoming available in like 2018, 2019, I was like, it was almost overwhelming. I was like, holy, like, how am I going to watch all this Danaher stuff? Like, I don't really have the time. And then I was like, you know, I'm going to be doing jiu-jitsu until I die. So I might as well start watching this now, because there's going to be some blue belt that's watching this Danaher leg lock DVD that's going to try to heel hook me. Right. So you got to try to keep up with the trends, and BJJ Fanatics, I think, is going to be like a huge thing when people look back at like the evolution of jiu-jitsu. YouTube and BJJ Fanatics changed the game.
Yeah, 100%. I was going to say something. I lost my train of thought there.
Here's an interesting question too. I was thinking about this before we got started, but say if you could train a clone of yourself. Yeah. You got yourself as a student, as a day one white belt. How would you train yourself as a white belt now being a black belt? How would you do it? What's some things you would focus on?
For me, I think a big part of it, and it's from listening to John Danaher. I mean, he's so smart at jiu-jitsu that, like, whenever he says something, you kind of have to listen to it. But I would start off with like my defense, like how to escape bottom position, how to improve my guard retention, and like really make sure that my defense is super solid. Like if I went against a higher belt, like for my clone as a white belt, if he went up against a higher belt, I want him to like not get submitted. Yeah. You know, the higher belt might get frustrated and say, like, this guy's fucking boring to roll with. But at least his defense is like really sound. And then off of that defense, you can start really developing your offense. And like, that's how I kind of approach my classes. I balance it out because, like, let's be honest, offense it's fun to learn submissions. Yeah. But I'm always going to be falling back on like the defense, like how they escape side control, how they escape mount back, etc. And also how they escape some of the major submission holds, like triangle, arm bars.
You gotta survive. You gotta be able to survive.
Yeah. And I also too, like, I probably like work a little bit more ashigurami too, like as a white belt, just like the basic setups to a rumi ashi and to a straight foot lock. this is kind of the same stuff that I teach my students. I think that leg locks right now, at least like the very basics, like urumiyashi and the straight foot lock, should be part of the fundamentals of jiu-jitsu now, because leg locks are becoming a little bit more prevalent, at least in the no-gi. So it's good to like learn how to like navigate through some of those positions, even if it's just like learning the positions, not so much the submissions. Because like the position can be used as a sweep, but also like you can untangle and then like pass the guard from there as well. Yeah. So I think they're really useful. I've always like actually, even when I was a white belt, I kind of like dabbled in leg locks because I was a big fan of Japanese MMA. And I also watched a lot of early Ryan Hall when he was a purple belt, heel hooking, black and stuff like that. So even back then, I kind of saw that leg locks were super valuable, but it was almost like I was the only one that saw it that way. Because I remember like
back in high school again, except now you're with the jiu-jitsu crowd.
Yeah.
It's happening again.
Because I remember like competing, and I had a match against Scott Rose, and I could hear God love John Gill, but I could hear him in the background being like, yeah, he would go for leg locks, like kind of like shit talking me and stuff. And I was just like, man, what's wrong with that? Like,
yeah, but that's what it was like, man. People don't realize now that it's like, I mean, it's heel hooks. Like if just people just do them now, it's just like, you got to be with it. But it's like back then it was like people really kind of would like, it was like frowned upon, like, no, like it's like people would, you fall back for leg lock. Some guys might roll their eyes, or whatever, it's just funny how the sport changes and grows. And now it's just like, what's not acceptable today might be acceptable next week. And if Gordon Ryan uses it, then everyone's going to use it. Right. So do you focus on competition too? Like, do you pay attention to what's going on at ADCC and some of these bigger events? Does that play into what you teach? Talk about that.
Yeah, 100%. So, Flow State Jiu-Jitsu, which is my team, it's super small right now. And like a lot of my members are young guys, right? And they all want to fight. They want to compete. So I just see my gym or my team as a competition team.
Yeah.
So I have my eyes open on all what all the high level guys are doing. I try to copy and bring back to the gym and stuff like that. I'm not right now interested in running like a recreational program. I have a bunch of young guys that, are around me that they're ready to fucking get down and dirty. Like, let's train. Let's get ready for these competitions. We got a few guys too that fight, like Rob Logan and Mike McLeod. So so I try to produce a high level room as far as the training goes. The level of skill, like it's still in development, because like I said, the majority of my students are white belts, and I may have like a couple of blue belts that train under me, and then one purple belt that trains under me. My friend Jaden, he used to be with MXT, but he decided to join my team because he liked what we were doing and stuff. And like essentially that's what we're preparing for, is like the next competition. So if you're competing, then you have to see what the best guys are doing and try to copy it.
Yeah. And so, I mean, a lot of people, I'm sure that would be listening to this would be maybe interested in doing a competition, or maybe they have done one or two before. And it's obviously something you deal with a lot. So when one of these young, hungry guys comes to you and they're like, man, Judo, I want to do the competition that's 6 weeks from now. And, maybe they only got a month or two of training. What's some advice that you give them? Even though what's some advice that you would give them, even though they're maybe a couple months in, but they're hungry to do it?
I would say do it if that's what you want to do anyways, and you may not win, right? But that doesn't matter. Just go out there, fucking fight your heart out. If you lose, then we go back to the drawing board and we try to figure out where we are lacking and improve those weaknesses, and then get ready for the next one. One thing that I did a seminar with Shane Rice back when I was the blue belt, and he said to me, he's like, no one cares. No one cares if you're a white belt, blue belt, purple, or brown losing the match. It only matters when you become a black belt, right? Yeah. So those like lower belts kind of just use that to sort of build yourself up, because jiu-jitsu is full of trial and error, right? Yeah. It's just like life, you're not going to come out on top like the first tournament. It takes some time. Yeah. Like even for me, like I still struggle with competing, and I'm just starting to like sort of find my groove with it. And it took me like 15 years to figure it out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one thing that I do admire about you, Judo, is that you're competing at all these tournaments, even still, like you said, 15 years in. And it's just like, I mean, I'm not willing to do that, like that go out there for every single tournament. I mean, I know like life's a bit different for us, but that's something I definitely admire about you, is that you're willing to go out there. It doesn't matter who signs up. It could be like a couple other guys, like your experience. It could be less experience. Like, you don't care. You'll just go out there. You sign up for your division. You sign up for the open weight. And I think that's an awesome example that you set for your students, that like, look, I'm going out there, I'm doing it. So why can't you? Right.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I mostly do that, like, because like I said, my team's small, so I may not always get the whole team signed up for one tournament, but I want Flow State on each tournament, right? So if my students aren't signing up, then I'm going to do it. I'm going to step up and I'm going to do it. Someone actually told me that I'm the most active black belt in the Maritimes. Not saying that. Definitely not the best, but I'm there like almost every tournament competing, and it's not like, for me, I don't have any specific goals. Like, I'm not trying to be world champion. My goals are more towards my school and my team, but I love competing. Like, I like the rush. I used to be a pro fighter, right? And like, that was a big part of my life, was training hard and fighting. So in my 30s, it's kind of like something that I can sort of keep on doing, but it's less dangerous, like, yeah. I mean, you can get your shit popped and stuff like that, but I never really had an injury from competing at jiu-jitsu, because usually if I get caught into something, I have no problem with tapping out. Like, okay, you got me. I'll get ready for the next match,
Yeah.
Like,
and you're out there so much. And like you said, I mean, you have had a number of losses, as have I. But like, I mean, I remember talking about you to my students, and they're like, oh man, judo, we hit this guy with a heel hook and that guy with a triangle. And it's like, I feel like people often just remember your wins, which is nice in jiu-jitsu, right? I mean, everyone has losses, but most of the time, like if you think about your buddies and their last competition matches, like you're probably thinking like, oh yeah, he did that cool move, he did this or did that. And it's like, it's true what Shane says. Like, people don't really care. They're just like, for the most part, like usually supportive, happy that you got out there, and competition is just good for that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And yeah, like I said, it's fun, and yeah, you get to see, like, I get to see guys like you and other people that are part of the scene, and it's almost like kind of like a family reunion,
Yeah.
like all, like, I love everybody in the scene. Like, I think everybody that's part of this scene, they're great people, and like, yes, we compete against each other, but at the end of the day, like after the tournament, we're talking to each other and we're talking about, you know, what our favorite techniques are and stuff like that. We're just shooting the shit like friends. And that's what it's all about. Life's too short. Life's too short to get all stressed out about things. Anything really. Right?
Yeah, it's true, man. It's true. It's just I feel the same way. It's just like I just love jiu-jitsu, and I'm just not a drama person anyway. So it's like, I don't know. I'm just here for the love of the sport, and I just love doing it. And yeah, it's awesome. And it's funny that you mentioned Scott Rose before too, because I was trying to remember the first time I kind of remember like meeting you or kind of seeing you. And I think it was a tournament in Truro that I think Jason McKay probably would have put on. And back then it was these tournaments that it would have been no points, submission only, like 5 or 6 minute time limit. And I remember at the time I would have been a white belt, and Scott Rose would have been one of my training partners, and he was tough as nails. He's always has been, right? Like I couldn't do anything to this guy, especially when I started. You know, he was just kicking the crap out of me. Like he's obviously a nice guy. He's one of my great friends. But so I remember going to this tournament in Truro. I would have been in the beginner division, and I remember watching Scott go, and I remember thinking like, oh geez, Scott's probably gonna smoke whoever he goes against. And I think you and him had a couple matches that day, and you definitely beat him at least one of the two. And I remember thinking like, wow, like this guy must be legit if he can beat Scott Rose.
Yeah. Like me and Scott had like a bit of a rivalry when it came to competition. There was like a few different competitions where we'd be like 1-1, or he beat me twice or I beat him twice. But yeah, we had a good like sort of friendly competition relationship, I guess, me and him. And he was definitely really tough, especially since he was coming from a wrestling background. And I'm like, my nickname was Judo. My judo sucks, but I guess
talk about that too. Talk about that, because that's come up a couple times in my class. They're like, oh, judo, like watch out for his takedowns. I'm like, actually, guys, the nickname is not actually true. He's not going to try a single takedown on you.
Yeah, I pretty much pull guard every match, almost guaranteed. I do work hard on my wrestling though, but so I got the nickname Judo. It came from high school actually. And earlier I didn't mention this, but I was part of a sort of a grappling club that, but it was actually a cult that was disguised as a grappling club. There was a lot of weird things that came with that. I was living at this instructor's house, and it was kind of like a weird thing where it was like, oh, you can't be doing that. This instructor wouldn't approve of it. Like we up at such a high regard. And I think like he was like kind of full of shit and like studied a lot of videos like cassette tapes and stuff like that, and said that he did Sambo and shit. But through that group, when I was in high school, I had a friend named James Kirkland, and he called me John Judo when I came into that club, because I was doing judo at the time. So that stuck in high school. And then I had another friend that joined that club. His name was Nathan Qatar, and him and John Gill were actually kind of close buddies for a little bit. So when I joined Dana, Nathan came with me, and Nathan would just call me Judo, right? So Dana and everybody at the club used to call me Judo as well because of that. So it just kind of like followed me from high school. We're talking about like when I was 15 years old. That nickname stuck with me all the way till I'm like 35 now. So it's an old nickname. It doesn't signify my judo skills whatsoever. I just think it's just more of a sounding thing, like John Judo or Judo.
Yeah, it just sounds good.
Yeah. But what I liked about it is that judo means the gentle way. And I think that's really kind of goes along with my personality, but also like sort of my style of jiu-jitsu, where I'm not necessarily overly aggressive as I am to a certain degree, in the sense that I'm always looking for the submission, but I'm not the guy that like barge in and like take you down and like physically dominate you. I'm more of a kind of guard player, look for my openings or create openings through off balancing and stuff like that. I take more of a technical approach than like I don't know, someone that would be more.
I think you captured that with the name of your gym too, Flow State. I think that's like, to me, like, that's judo, you know, that's you. Like when I think about like, you're the flow guy, you know, we could probably have a friggin' 10-minute flow roll that we could put on YouTube, me and you, and it would probably look pretty cool, right? Like, I feel like that's a perfect name for your academy.
Yeah. And I like that name because Flow State means it's like a state of mind that like a lot of people will enter. Like, for example, like a musician or whatever, they're on stage, they're playing their guitar, but they're not thinking about which strings they're playing. It's all muscle memory, and it's almost like they enter like the Zen state and their body just kind of goes. And that's what jiu-jitsu does for me. I feel is like it's a place where I can like sort of meditate in a way and like just kind of be in the moment and not like think about all the bullshit that life kind of throws at you, like your bills and stuff like that. I'm just completely tuned into the role, and that's why I picked the name Flow State, you know?
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome, man. And it's awesome to see you still doing it and teaching, and your club's growing, and you're getting some good guys, training partners and fighters. I know Rob Logan is doing amazing. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch you continue to grow that. Do you have any like kind of future goals or plans with your academy or with your students that you would like to accomplish?
Yeah, well, I mean, I really just it's to be the best, really. Like, I want to work. I believe, and like I don't mean this as an offense to any other the other clubs in St. John, but I've trained at the other clubs, and I believe that my knowledge base is better. I think out of all the black belts in the city, I'm probably the one that studies the most. And I could be just talking out of my ass. Maybe I'm wrong about this assumption, but just from training with all the other ones, I feel like I study more than they do. I think there's a lot of black belts here in St. John that, you know, they learned their jiu-jitsu from 2005, right? And that's the jiu-jitsu that they know, and that's the jiu-jitsu that they're going to stick with. Because, you know, they come from more of a traditional background. Like MXT is with Max Trombe, who's under, like, he's affiliated under Hickson, you know, Shane's under Hickson, and they're all about the self-defense, which is good, you know, especially for people that are like maybe middle-aged or people that don't really want to compete. They just want to defend themselves. So those are good things to have. But for like people that want to compete, I think like my club's the best club in the city for that. And from there, you know, I want to be known as the best in the city, but also known as the best in New Brunswick, and then the Maritimes, and then hopefully Canada. But, you know, I may not reach that. But the pursuit of being the best, I feel, is going to make the team really good. You know, we may not be known as the best, but that pursuit and that drive, I think, is going to just raise the level of my room.
Yeah, and you'll definitely find some greatness or like great moments along the way. Even like you said, if you don't reach like that like best team in Canada or whatever, just having that work ethic and the drive of like, no, we want to be the best. We're training like it. Yeah, that will definitely give you a lot of success for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it'll bring a lot of value to people's lives too, right? When we have a room where it's a bunch of people, they have like the similar goals and like sort of similar mindset, like you're gonna go far in life with that, you know?
Yeah, for sure, man. So usually I just kind of finish up with kind of some random questions, some about jiu-jitsu and some not. So let's just do these. I think it'll be kind of fun. So currently today, what's your favorite TV show, if you have one?
Oh geez. Who's number one?
A true jiu-jitsu guy, Judo. Who's number one? Okay, how about this one? I've added this. This is a new question. Who have you rolled with the most in your jiu-jitsu career? Who's the one person you've rolled with more than anybody else?
Probably Dana.
Dana. Okay.
Yeah, I would say, because like when I was training under him, pretty much, so that was like 10 years of training. Every class, I'd be his first roll, right? So I would say he's probably the one guy that I've rolled with the most.
Okay, awesome. What's the last technique that you taught in class?
Oh, geez. I think it was like some open guard stuff. We're looking at the dummy sweep or double coyote sweep. And to like, so you hit that move and he kind of staggers off of that. Then you got like other techniques like single leg X or wrestling up and stuff like that. So it was a Thursday class, and that was before the last competition. I think that was like sort of the sequences that I was teaching at the time.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite movies?
Oh, I like Fight Club. Fight Club's probably one of my all-time favorites. And then pretty much almost all the Star Wars movies, except for the sequels. The last three I wasn't a big fan of. I still watch them because it's Star Wars, right? And I'm a nerd when it comes to that stuff. So so I would say out of the three trilogies, the original trilogies is probably the best one.
Okay, awesome.
So A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi.
What about martial arts? You have any martial arts or MMA movies that you like?
Well, yeah, like Bruce Lee. I mean, I used to have a box set of DVDs of like all the Bruce Lee movies. So that was pretty dope. We had Return of the Dragon. I also had Enter the Dragon too. I downloaded that as an MP3 way back. Game of Death. I can't remember his other ones, but Fist of Fury, I think, was one. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, all of them. What about who's your favorite grappler right now? Who's your favorite grappler to watch?
Right now, I've been studying a lot of Craig Jones. Obviously, Gordon Ryan's the best guy, and like if you're doing jiu-jitsu, he's the guy that you're supposed to pay attention to. But I like Craig because he's a little bit bigger, but we kind of have a similar body type in the sense that we're long and lanky. He's really good at Z guard, which is like half guard. It's sort of something that I've been playing since I was a blue belt and stuff like that. And I like a lot of his top game stuff that he has on BJJ Fanatics, like that power ride and stuff. I think
that was interesting. That was really interesting to watch.
Yeah, I think that stuff's really good. I've been using it a lot when I'm rolling, and it's different. It's a little, you can really like squish people with some of that stuff.
Not traditional side control and mount, but it's just kind of how to ride the legs and just kind of how to make people uncomfortable and kind of give up submissions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What about, where are we at here? What's your current favorite technique, if you have one?
Well, that's a tough one, because there's a few things that I like doing, but if I have to pick, like, I guess leg locks are probably like my favorite. The inside heel hook, I think, is such a devastating submission. Like, you can get that, you get a good bite. It's pretty much a guaranteed win, because no one's fucking around with that. They're usually tapping out to an inside heel hook.
Oh yeah, that's it. What about this one? What do you usually eat for breakfast?
I actually don't eat breakfast. I kind of like it fast. So,
okay. Well, what do you usually eat when you first eat?
So around lunchtime, like, I'll probably have a sandwich, grilled cheese. Like, I like grilled cheese when I'm home. Like, it's pretty simple. I put like some sandwich meat on there and grill it, and it's a nice little sandwich.
Nice, I love it. What do you think was the hardest belt for you?
The hardest belt, I would say, probably purple belt.
Why?
Well, I feel like purple belts, it's such a big gap, right? It takes the longest to get, but like, as far as like skill level goes, like, you could have like really freaking good purple belts, and then you could have like not so great purple belts. So I would say that's the toughest belt, probably the toughest one to get, and maybe even compete at. But I think due to certain things that happened in life, blue belt was probably my hardest one competitively, just because like I was dealing with a loss with my grandfather back then, and like competitively, I just wasn't as strong. Purple belt, like, things started to kind of go good, but like, you'd have some good matches, and then you would also sometimes, like, for me anyways, I get like diced up depending on who was in the division, right?
Yeah.
And then I found like black belt too is pretty tough, because I had a weak start at black belt. I lost a lot of tournaments at black belt that first year. So I don't know. It's a tough question, really.
The best thing I ever heard about being a purple belt was from Craig Jones. And he said, purple belt's interesting because technically you're good enough that you could submit a black belt.
Yeah.
But you also could get submitted by a white belt.
Yeah.
It's like, it's kind of true. You're kind of in the right middle point of the road of where, like, yeah, you're on the road to black belt, but it's like, you're not quite there yet technically. So it's like someone that's big and strong and athletic can still give you like a hell of a time.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's a fair assessment.
Last one for these ones. If you're setting the round timer, how long are the rounds? How long are we rolling for?
My sweet spot is 7 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll just do 5s. So this last tournament, we just did 5s, but leading up, like when we were 3 weeks out, it was no breaks in between. It was like 5 minutes, you finish your round. All right, quick drink, find a new partner, let's get to it.
Yeah.
But 7, I like longer rounds. But I feel like if you go up above 7, it kind of like eats away at the class time. So 7 is like the sweet spot for a good longer round, but not too long in the sense that you can roll more. Like, you can have rounds.
Yeah, it still keeps people engaged, and it's not quite like I feel like I can put 10 minutes on the timer. People are like, oh my God, 10 minutes, right? But 7 minutes or, you know, sometimes 6 minutes, kind of a good, that's a good sweet spot. Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, this was great, man. It was great to catch up with you. And I mean, I'm sure we could talk for hours about jiu-jitsu and all the competitions and, you know, all the experiences that we had, but I'm trying to keep these at least a little bit short and sweet. But it was great to get some perspective and like hear about your background and a little bit about your team. And yeah, I think to me, you're a very inspiring person in the jiu-jitsu community. Like I said, you're out there all the time. You're doing it, you know, even if you're not, like you said, your goal is maybe not to be a world champion, but you're out there. And I feel like you're inspiring people. And that's really what jiu-jitsu is all about. It's about being resilient, bouncing back from adversity. And yeah, I mean, no one lives up to that more than you. So yeah, thanks very much for being a guest on here. You're the very first one on the video edition of the Great Canadian BJJ Show. So is there anything else that you'd like to say to your fans or your students or any sponsors? The floor is yours to wrap it up.
Yeah, I just like to give a shout out to Art of Savagery. So they sponsor me. They hook me up with gear and stuff. So they're a local company in St. John, but they provide gear for everybody in the Maritimes. They have like t-shirts, hoodies, gis, no gi sets. So look them up on Instagram at Art of Savagery. And Ryan Grant will hook you up with some stuff there. Just let them know that I sent you over. Also, I just like to say just keep on training and keep on pushing forward towards your goals. Jiu-jitsu is a great thing. Like it's helped me a lot in life, and I encourage everybody to keep on the path, no matter how hard it gets. Just keep your nose in the nose grind there, and you'll reach your goals in jiu-jitsu for sure.
Yeah, I mean, no one knows that better than us. Like, I mean, we're two black belts. We've been black belts for a while, but we travel down the road and we know what it's like. There's definitely some bumps on the road. Sometimes where you're going to quit. Sometimes where you're questioning yourself, like, why the hell am I doing this a couple times a week? But, you know, like, don't give up and, you know, like focus on your goals. And it's not an easy road, but I think it's very rewarding. And if you've got as far as us, then you're definitely going to be able to look back and have a lot of great memories and then want to give back, which, like I said, I think kind of that's what it's all about. So yeah, thanks for being such an inspiration. I love seeing what you're doing always on social media and stuff. And I would love to have you on again, maybe after a big tournament or maybe to recap some big news or something. You've been a great friend. I have always loved chatting with you.
Yeah, for sure. You too, Josh.
Thanks a lot, Judo. I really appreciate the time, and you have a great day.
Yeah, you too.
Take care, bro.